There is a place at the edge of the Aegean Sea where the earth swallowed itself whole and left behind something so strange, so wildly beautiful, that the Greeks people who had lived with gods and monsters since the beginning of their history simply stopped trying to explain it and started painting it instead. Stand at the rim of the caldera on a clear morning and try to comprehend what you are actually looking at. Below you, the sea does not behave like the sea. It sits inside a bowl of cliffs that are not cliffs in the ordinary sense, but the fractured interior walls of a volcano that collapsed into itself roughly 3,600 years ago in what scientists now believe was one of the most catastrophic eruptions in the entire history of human civilization. The water is not blue the way other water is blue. It is a deep, almost violent cobalt, saturated and luminous, as though lit from somewhere beneath. The villages on the rim above it, whitewashed, bell-towered, terraced into the rock like fossils, glow against the sky with an intensity that has no casual explanation. They look painted. They look like someone dreamed them and forgot to wake up. This is Santorini. Not the Santorini of Instagram accounts and honeymoon brochures. Not the curated postcard of blue domes and infinity pools. The real Santorini, the Santorini that exists underneath the image, behind the image, before the image even existed, is something far stranger and far more profound. It is a place built on catastrophe, a civilization that vanished in a single morning, a caldera that changed the world, a landscape so geologically extreme that standing inside it, looking out across water that sits where a mountain used to be, you feel something shift in your understanding of what this planet is capable of. We are going inside that story. The moment you understand what Santorini actually is not a destination, but a wound in the earth that the Aegean has filled with water and time, you will never see it the same way again. If places like this are what you came here for, the version of the world that lives beneath the surface of the obvious Zerta planet exists exactly for this. This is where the real story of extraordinary places gets told. Subscribe and the journey continues. Now, back to the edge of the caldera, back to the water that used to be a mountain, back to the beginning of a story that starts not with a sunset or a village or a glass of local wine, but with fire. The island group known today as Santorini is the southernmost island in the Cyclades, a constellation of Greek islands scattered across the central Aegean. The main island itself, called Thera in Greek, named after the Spartan king Theras who colonized it roughly 3,000 years ago, is shaped like a crescent moon, curving around the western and northern edge of the caldera. To its northwest lies the smaller island of Therasia. Between them, at the center of the submerged basin, two small volcanic islands thrust from the water. Nea Kameni and Pelea Kameni, the youngest geological features in the archipelago, still technically active, still venting sulfurous gases that turn the water around them an eerie greenish yellow. The caldera itself, the flooded crater at the heart of the Santorini complex, is approximately 12 kilometers across, or roughly 7.5 miles. It drops to a depth of around 390 meters, or about 1,280 feet at its lowest point. That water-filled basin represents the collapsed heart of a volcano that scientists call the Thera, and its geological history stretches back nearly 2 million years into the Earth's past. But the event that defined Santorini, the event that changed everything, that rewrote the ancient Mediterranean world, that possibly ended one of the most sophisticated civilizations in human history, happened in a single afternoon. Around 1627 BCE, give or take a century depending on which dating method you trust, the Thera volcano erupted with a force that scientists have struggled to adequately quantify ever since. The current best estimates place the volcanic explosivity index of the Minoan eruption, named for the Minoan civilization that was ravaged in its aftermath, at 6 or 7 on a scale that only goes to 8. To put that in perspective, the eruption of Krakatoa in 1883, which sent shockwaves around the world 4 times, killed approximately 36,000 people, and lowered global temperatures for years afterward, had a VE1 of 6, the 1815 eruption of Tambora in Indonesia. The most powerful volcanic eruption in recorded history, responsible for the year without a summer and crop failures across the northern hemisphere, had a VE1 of 7, The Minoan eruption of Thera was at least as powerful as either of those, perhaps more. The eruption ejected somewhere between 30 and 60 cubic kilometers of volcanic material into the atmosphere. Some estimates go higher. It generated tsunamis up to 40 meters tall, perhaps taller, that swept across the Aegean and struck the coastlines of Crete, Turkey, and Egypt. The ash cloud darkened skies across an enormous radius. In the weeks and months that followed, agricultural failures across the eastern Mediterranean likely contributed to social instability from Egypt to the Levant. Some scholars, still controversial, still debated it, have suggested that the Minoan eruption is the historical seat of the Great Flood myths, the plagues of Egypt, and possibly even the legend of Atlantis itself. What is not debated is what was lost. Before the eruption, the island of Thera was home to a thriving Minoan settlement, a Bronze Age civilization of remarkable sophistication that flourished across Crete and the Aegean from roughly 2600 to 1100 BCE. The Minoans were not primitive people. They built multi-story buildings with indoor plumbing. They created frescoes of extraordinary beauty. They traded with Egypt, with the Levant, with the Greek mainland. Their art depicted dolphins and boxing youths and processional priestesses carrying offerings. They wrote in a script, Linear A, that remains undeciphered to this day. By the time the classical Greek world takes shape, Athens and Sparta and the marble temples that still haunt the imagination of Western civilization, Thera is settled again. Greeks from the Dorian migration established a colony here around 1000 BCE. The island found its place in the ancient world's networks of trade and religion. Ancient Thera, built not in the north where tourists cluster today, but on the southeastern ridge of the island, on a promontory called Mesa Vuno, still stands. The ruins sit at nearly 360 meters above sea level, reached by a road that climbs past dry scrub and rock walls. Walking through its streets, past temples to Apollo, and gymnasiums where young men trained and the remains of houses built when Rome was still a republic, you understand something that the modern resort version of Santorini tends to obscure. This island has been continuously inhabited in various forms for at least 3,000 years. It has survived not just its own catastrophic birth, but Macedonian rule, Roman occupation, Byzantine governance, Venetian conquest in the 13th century, Ottoman rule beginning in the 16th, and the full turbulence of modern Greek history. It became definitively part of the modern Greek state in 1821, following the Greek War of Independence. Every one of those civilizations left something behind a church built on the foundation of a temple, a name absorbed and transformed by the next language, a wall that has been repaired by hands that never knew whose hands had built it. The Venetians are the ones who gave Santorini its name. The original medieval port of the island was guarded by a Byzantine chapel dedicated to Saint Irini Hagia Irini in Greek, Santa Irini in the Venetian dialect that ruled the Aegean trade routes in the 13th century. The name contracted, softened, and became Santa Irini, then Santorini. The island is still officially called Thera, and its capital, the main town perched on the caldera rim, is still called Fira, but Santorini is the name that survived in every language on earth, carried by the Venetian merchants who made it their own. Fira itself sits at the top of a cliff face 330 meters high, built in tiers along the caldera wall. Before the road and the cable car, the only way to reach it from the port below was by donkey, climbing a switchback path of 588 steps carved into the volcanic rock. The donkeys are still there. They still carry people and goods up that path, though the ethics of that practice have become a subject of growing debate in recent years. The path itself has been worn smooth by centuries of hooves and feet. Every stone in it knows the weight of this island's history. But Fira, for all its density and commerce, is not where Santorini's soul lives. Follow the Caldera Road north, past the windmills and the tourist terraces, and the restaurant menus written in 7 languages. And eventually the island narrows and quietens, and you arrive at Oya. It sits at the northernmost tip of the crescent, at the very edge of the caldera's rim, and it is constructed from the same white and blue palette that the world has come to associate with Greece itself. The blue domes of its Orthodox churches rising against a sky so clear it seems to have been newly installed that morning. But Oya was not always beautiful in the tourist sense. For most of its existence, it was a fishing and seafaring village one of the most important naval communities in the Aegean during the 19th century, when Santorini's fleet of schooners carried cargo across the Mediterranean. The captains who made their fortunes in that era built the neoclassical mansions that still line the main path of Oia today. Their facades polished and restored, their interiors converted into boutique hotels where a single night can cost more than a month's salary for the person who makes your bed. The earthquake of 1956, a 7.7 magnitude event that remains one of the deadliest seismic disasters in modern Greek history, devastated Santorini. It destroyed over half the buildings on the island, killed dozens of people, and prompted a mass emigration that nearly emptied the place entirely. For a decade, the island was half abandoned. The cave houses built into the volcanic rock of the caldera wall, carved out of the